The following observations about the film Eyes Wide Shut follows a notion that moments and imagery in the film conform to Jesus Christ's crucifixion and place of burial, as posited by a 1996 book called Tomb of God. Taking the film chronologically, an image of a Christmas tree is shown on the left, an image that recalls Jesus Christ. Again, in this image, a Christmas tree. The period in the film is Christmas time. This character, Nick Nightingale, doesn't yield an immediate allegorical counterpart in the life of Jesus Christ, although to Nick is to steal, and one person in Jesus' life who was a source of some consternation, or who was friendly and then became adversarial, is Judas Iscariot, which is not to say I think Tom Cruise's character, Bill Harford, represents Jesus, because I don't. In fact, Bill Harford and his wife, Alice, may represent the public mind, civilization. Nick Nightingale is the source of a betrayal that does cost someone their life. Now, what this first party would represent in the life of Christ is not so clear to me. The Christ figure has not yet shown up, though this 8-pointed cross has, and it is a cross, I feel, as the southernmost point seems to be longer, looking similar to a compass rose, also called a wind rose, that displays the orientation of the cardinal directions. It's an old cross that appeared in some of the ancient civilizations that predated the time of Christ by millennia. The one party I can think of in Jesus' time was the wedding of Cana. It has been written rather controversially that the wedding at Cana was Jesus' wedding, and though marriage is spoken of here by the characters in this room, the scene does not depict a wedding. Bill Harford, Tom Cruise, is called upstairs by Victor Ziegler, Victor meaning a winner, and Ziegler meaning tiler, as in one who works with tiles, or it means bricklayer or brickmaker. Jesus and his father, I have read, were builders. An operative masonry connection would seem to be made with the name, and a speculative Masonic reference is found in Tyler. Tyler, Tyler, is an officer of a Masonic lodge who guards against the curious and properly prepares candidates, prepares a room for meetings, supplies regalia, and acts as permanent caretaker of the furniture and the premises. If there was a candidate in this film, who is it? Was it Bill Harford? Was his whole ordeal planned? Or was it this important character, Mandy Curran, who I feel is made to represent Jesus, and Mary Magdalene? Mandy, Amanda, made me think of two words, man, die. Her last name is Curran, C-U-R-R-A-N. A currant, C-U-R-R-A-N-T, is a grape, a small seedless raisin, if you will. If this is made to represent Jesus, in my theory, why would Jesus or Mary be on drugs at a party? At what period of Jesus' life would this be? Well, Ziegler in this scene calls her kiddo. I don't recall a time in the New Testament where young Jesus was on a substance. If the allegory is not to be carried that far, could it be wine instead? Again, I can't recall a passage. Jesus did deal with wine at the wedding of Cana. Mandy is wearing a rather prominent ring here. Again, nothing definite. Bill Harford is called to the house of the late Lou Nathanson, a Christmas tree here on the left. An interesting gesture from Bill Harford. Lou Nathanson is there dead. One time a dead person is dealt with at length in the New Testament is Lazarus of Bethany. Lazarus and Lou both start with the letter L, so I looked into the name Nathanson. There is a Christian tomb in Bethany for Lazarus, son of Nathalu, or Nathan. And Jesus Christ apparently had royal lineage from an earlier Nathan. Lou Nathanson's daughter here is Marion, a name not dissimilar to Mary, Lazarus' sister, and some say that Mary is the same as Mary Magdalene. A not irrelevant non sequitur in a later scene, a mob of youths knock into Bill Harford, and one yells, "Merry Christmas, Mary," Christmas recalling Christ, and Mary recalling either Mary the Mother of God or Mary Magdalene. A later scene, another lit Christmas tree. Bill Harford survives a temptation, the first of several. Then Bill goes to a nightclub where Nick Nightingale is playing. Nightingale betrays the trust of his employer and reveals to Harford the location of that evening's events. Good support for Nick representing Judas Iscariot. En route to the party, Bill in a cab, happy holiday in lights above, another Christ Christmas reference. The location of the party, the sign showing the name of the estate, Somerton. That name may come from Old English for sea lake enclosure, summer town, or summer farmstead. In this scenario of allegory, I would say Somerton is Gethsemane, or Gat-Semane. I would note the similarity in my mind, anyway, to summer and Sema. Gethsemane is a place that two Gospels refer to as a place or estate. The building in the movie is an estate rather than a garden, a place that Jesus and his disciples customarily visited, as Mandy Curran and her fellow female participants in these events presumably did often. Now, if Bill Harford's experience were orchestrated, and he was an exemplar in these proceedings, Ziegler was waiting for him, hence his acknowledgement of Bill. That's presumably him there masked with his masked wife. This woman, who we later find to be Amanda Curran, the overdosed woman from the first party, is wearing a headdress that I would say reminds me of a lion's mane, which reminds me of the Lion of Judah. Jesus Christ had some ties to the line of Judah. Bill Harford's true identity is discovered, and he's brought before what I would say symbolizes Pontius Pilate's court, with angry onlookers, presumably Hebrews, around him. Pontius Pilate would be the red-cloaked authority figure who speaks in the center. This red cloak character sits on a throne with the double eagle symbol on it. A single eagle was a very strong Roman symbol. The double eagle came later, in Byzantium, at a time and place that was technically also Roman. So that's another association with this character as Rome and Pontius Pilate. Mandy Curran emerges from a balcony and yells, "Let him go. I am ready to redeem him." Redeem is a word I immediately think of in terms of the phrase Christ the Redeemer, and Christ, when in front of Pilate, did have someone on trial with him, Barabbas, a name that has been argued to be a corruption of Bar-Rabbi, or son of the rabbi, potentially meaning the son of Christ. Though Bill Harford might represent somebody as close to Jesus as that in this particular scene, I don't immediately associate him with the son of Christ before this scene or after it. Regardless, the Mandy character is taken away and presumably punished, fatally even. After this scene, a character arc seems to have changed. Situations seem to have been altered. Bill runs into a series of dead ends. Things have gotten weirder. Nick Nightingale has essentially been kidnapped or punished. Bill then discovers that Mandy Curran is dead. The woman at the morgue tells Bill Mandy Curran died at 3:45 p.m. Christ is supposed to have died in the 3 o'clock hour. I would say that this hallway and the rather blatant lines, red lines, rose lines, represent certain geography as it pertains to the material in the aforementioned book Tomb of God, and I'm sure others, in the south of France, in the Languedoc region, which reportedly has some very interesting geometry in the landscape and also in man-made structures like churches. Bill and this morgue orderly walk down this hallway and take a right to the body of Mandy Curran. On a map of the landscape in question, this would be walking west to east, and then taking a right to go south, in the way that one would if you were walking from Rennes-le-Château and taking a right to go to Rennes-les-Bains. This doorway into the room would therefore represent a place where 3 trackways meet, and this X-ray is interesting in that it's bright white, and in the geography at that general location was reputed to be a structure named after the family Blanchefort, or Blancafort, meaning white fort, apparently 2 small towers made of white stone. Well, here are 2 white X-rays. Bill and the orderly approach where the body is, in a large, strong, safe-like structure. The orderly stands behind Bill and the body of Mandy/Jesus/Mary Magdalene, and this orderly's position in relation to the other things mentioned in the room interestingly parallel the location of another feature in the geography, Rock Negra, or Black Rock, a rock feature that happens to be black right across from the key feature in this scenario, Cardou, Cardou. In this book Tomb of God, it was posited that Cardou is a regional pronunciation of the true phrase, Corps de Dieu, body of God. And for many other reasons supported in the book, the location of the burial of Christ and or Christ's relatives, maybe including Mary Magdalene, and perhaps some information, genealogical or otherwise. I couldn't figure out what these symbols behind the orderly refer to, but many things are often on purpose in Kubrick films, and this warrants further analysis, maybe by you. This is quite a loaded image for me. Bill's head and Mandy's head are opposite directions, above, below, as above, so below. So if this is an image of opposites, if you flip the image, the number 19 above her compartment becomes 61. One of the words that a gematria calculation yields for 61 is God, as in tomb of God. Bill leaves Mandy's body. On his way out, the letters C can be seen to his right by the elevator, and the letter G on the right wall. C for Christ, G for God. 3 people are sitting here. People in white in a medical building are arguably people of authority. Do they represent guardians of the body, or just 3 wise men? Bill is summoned to Ziegler's home. He doesn't go of his own accord, he is summoned by Ziegler. Of Mandy Curran, he tells Bill, "She was a hooker. Sorry, that's what she was." Then there's a decent pause and the distance of things changes. Perspective. Prostitute recalls the Magdalene and how Mary Magdalene was seen throughout most of history. Ziegler then says the following, which if applied to the crucifixion I find very interesting. "Suppose I told you that everything that happened to you there, the threats, the girl's warnings, her last-minute intervention, suppose I said all of that was staged, that it was a kind of charade, that it was fake." So that there's no confusion, Bill Harford asks, "The woman lying dead in the morgue was the woman at the party?" "Yes," says Ziegler. "She was a junkie. She OD'd," Ziegler says. It has been written that drugs or a drug may have been involved in the crucifixion, particularly when it comes to theories that the crucifixion was faked, with Christ's participation, that maybe a substance was used to put him in a death-like state so that he could be safely removed without suspicion. In that context, do I find this talk of drugs interesting. And then for Ziegler to say that she died a natural death, not brought on by anybody at the party, would, in this allegorical scenario, seem to say that Jesus died a natural death, perhaps much later, and in a different location. Bill returns home, another Christmas tree in sight, but he shuts it off. This would seem to represent a transformation, a lack of need, perhaps, for that symbol. The little that remains is supplementary and auxiliary, but Alice Harford dismisses a carriage that her daughter's looking at, saying it's old-fashioned, as if the past is now passé and somehow not important, optimistically, perhaps, that there aren't any times but new times. In that vein, she also adds later, "I think we should be grateful that we've managed to survive through all of our adventures, whether they were real or only a dream. The important thing is we're awake now, and hopefully for a long time to come." This supports the idea that Bill and Alice represented a mass cultural consciousness, and that some transformation occurred after a disclosure of information regarding, apparently, the crucifixion, and maybe, though I haven't looked for the symbolism, other tumultuous societal events. Thanks for watching.